Mic check. I found this pretty cool Blu-ray box set recently, including a good chunk of Stanley Kubrick's filmography. I love this box set. It's given me a good chance to rewatch all of his films in gorgeous quality. I just hate how some Blu-ray sets are like packaged. I mean, look at this. Why are the discs so hard to get out? Kubrick is one of the most controversial modern filmmakers. Well, I say modern filmmakers of all time. I don't think this video needs an introduction. I'm sure everyone knows at least something about Stanley Kubrick, whether it's something incredibly infamous, controversial, or maybe even working with Spielberg. As the title says, this will be his filmography ranked from my least favourite of his works to my favourite. This will have a slightly different format than my usual video because he has a way smaller filmography than people have covered so far. I think it will be easier to just go one by one and really focus, instead of just being on the spot, dragging them around into tears. Yeah. This list will contain films he directed after 1960. There are some really odd films I have not gotten around to, and I've heard from a lot of people. They don't really define Kubrick. There's a film, Paths of Glory, from 1957, which was incredible, but it feels nothing like the iconic Kubrick style he got further down the line. There's there's not much really in this film that really feels like it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. It has a few Full Metal Jacket feeling moments, but it was better in Full Metal Jacket. I'm starting from 1960 because it means I don't need to finish watching Spartacus. Number 8 and 7, we have sort of tie. I think these two films come to mind straight away when I think of weakest Kubrick film. Neither of these films had me like thinking about them for weeks after finishing them, like the others on this list did. These films I just couldn't get behind strongly or never really stuck with me. Let's give a less controversial take out of the way. I don't really fuck with Lolita. I feel like if Stanley Kubrick was to direct this film at its peak of popularity, around like late 70s or 80s, it would be 100% accurate, which is a scary thought to have. Lolita has been a controversial book since its release, and everyone has their own opinion on it. Kubrick read this soul-sucking book and decided to make it more of a black comedy, aging the character up from like 13 or 12 to 19, I think, making the abuse more implied. I heard there was a more book accurate adaptation in the 90s. I heard it was too accurate and foul to watch. So I don't really want to explain the plot here. I just think it's understandable if you want to miss this one out of his filmography. It shot really quite well. Overall, it's a slow burning film, very much improved by the ending, which just sticks with you. 3 stars. My other tie for 9th, 8th place is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Yes, it's an incredibly important and iconic film for cinema, but I just can't get behind it. I just can't get out for any of the characters. My favourite part of it is that it's 1 hour and 30 minutes, which was so refreshing, due to it was the last Kubrick film I watched for the first time. 3 stars. Okay, number 6. Very, very controversial here, but 2001, Space Odyssey. Another very controversial opinion. I know. I plan to rewatch this soon, because it's been quite a few years. It's the only film I didn't rewatch when I got the box set. I found it a bit boring. Obviously, it's shot beautifully, but it's so boring. It feels so slow. I have the same reason. I have the same reason with Doctor Strangelove. I just couldn't get behind it or any of the characters or plot, making 2.5 hours feel like watching Apprentice on a day 3 times in one sitting, which I would rather do. Other things I could watch instead of this could be, is it Tarkovsky? Don't know how to pronounce his name. Tarkovsky, Solaris, and Barbie. 3 stars. Number 5, we have A Clockwork Orange. Thank God there was another Kubrick film set in my country, otherwise this would be the only film that represents my country in the Kubrick filmography, which isn't a great feeling to have. But this film is fantastic. Oh my God. But fantastic in a way where I would rather never watch it ever again. It's grim, it's gritty, it's foul, it's disgusting. Everything Kubrick planned came out way too accurately, but it's an important film to watch nonetheless, especially if you have an interest in cinema. The film is about this really disgusting gang. I don't know if it's London. Is it London? There's a section of a film where the main guy, forgot his name now, Alex, where Alex gets caught, and what happens to him when he gets caught is it's just very interesting. Number 4, Eyes Wide Shut, freaky ass film. This is the girl who tried to stuff Paddington like 15 laters down the line. That's not a sentence. 15 years down the line. I didn't love it as much as on the rewatch. This is my parents' only exposure to Kubrick, which makes every time I bring up his name around them a bit, makes the conversation a bit awkward. The film is about a very normal sexual relationship. This is an incredibly well-paced film. This is 2.5 hours, which feels like what Doctor Strangelove's runtime should feel like. Wait, no, that's not what I meant to say. This film feels like what Doctor Strangelove's runtime should feel like. No, that doesn't make sense either. I mean, this film feels like Doctor Strangelove's runtime, but Doctor Strangelove's runtime. Watching a film feels like this length. I'm really bad at wording things. Even on the slower films, slower scenes, I feel like the wonderful cinematography, and the way a scene is shot can bring you straight into the film again. This also made me realise that Tom Cruise is like the 80s, 90s equivalent to Chris Pratt. But Chris Pratt, he's a pretty good when he has to do something he can work with, but terrible when he's just thrown into something. Tom Cruise can't act full stop, but I feel like his unnatural way of acting and his weird line deliveries suit this weird feeling film very well. 4 stars. This is also the final Kubrick film before he unfortunately passed away from a heart attack. He apparently had many ideas for future films, but Eyes Wide Shut sadly is where his filmography ends. Funnily with the word fuck. So this is where I would put Paths of Glory after Eyes Wide Shut and right before Full Metal Jacket. Oh, my cat. Hold on. It's probably the shortest list I will ever make. And talk about a filmmaker like this. Because the last 3 are practically tied, all being very close to 4 and 4.5 stars each. Honestly, only making like 6 tiers altogether, which is not a lot of things to rank. Full Metal Jacket is one of the most effective war films of all time, and one of my all-time favourites. Almost up there with films like Jojo Rabbit, and Life is Beautiful, which really captures the absolute hell of war. The film has 2 parts. The first part shows the characters in the military preparing to just insert themselves into the Vietnam War. They really got a real sergeant to play the role. It's a really eerie set, adding so much realism. It's a bit unclear, but the main character, if there really is one, is James. It has his monologue very rarely, which is part of a film I would love if it was actually consistent. Not like Amelie levels of narration, but it annoys me of how like non-consistent it is. The second half shows the horror of the war. It goes on for a bit too long near the end, always having like a stunning scene, which would make me really think the film would just be absolutely perfect if the titles rode just there, creating a really effective final shot of the film. But the film just keeps on going. Stanley Kubrick always has like a really weird original soundtrack, a bit lynchy. A few of the scores composed by a trans woman, which is just awesome. I'm not sure which scores though. This one's probably my favourite of Kubrick's films in terms of soundtrack. Ruins and Sniper are my standout tracks from it. They both perfectly set the mood for the film and each scene they're used in. It's just really eerie. Number 2, The Shining. A popular number 1 spot for very good reasons. It's a fucking Shining. For cinematography, this film is a masterpiece for that alone. This film is about Jack Torrance, a winter caretaker staying at a hotel while he attempts to write a book with creative block. He's staying here with his wife and child from the beginning. The film has like this eerie feeling. Not many people notice this on the first time, but the layout of the hotel makes absolutely no sense, adding to the surrealism of the film. The plot is relatively simple once the viewer is settled on each character. Freaky things start to happen, with immaculate filmmaking for each iconic spooky scene. The music is incredibly iconic, the main theme even being ripped off by the only good Friday the 13th film. The more I learn about this film, the more I rewatch it, the more I fall in love with this film. Even the small details about how the structure of a hotel, like mentioned earlier, doesn't make any sense, and the eerie glances Jack Nicholson very subtly looks straight into the camera, breaking the fourth wall, adding like creepiness, so much creepiness to the film. He like does it for like a split second, well, like more like a second, but it's sometimes very noticeable. It's so creepy. Sadly, the last film on this list isn't part of this series, but look how cute the Stanley Kubrick tubs are. They're adorable. And at number 1, finally, we have Barry Lyndon. I wish every film was shot like this. Not really in its cinematography, but its lighting. A lot of the time, films, lighting is taken for granted, and it's a real make or break for me, at least. Unless it's as peak as 2000's Doctor Who, then it can get away with its awful, very early 2000s lighting and colour grading. Barry Lyndon is lit up only by natural lighting, which was sort of like candles and stuff like that, which I wish was more popular in film. When I film projects, I always dominantly use natural lighting, avoiding stuff like reflectors and stuff like that. I feel like it can sometimes take you out of the immersion. Although I'm just weird like that, I feel like Barry Lyndon left too much of an impression on me. Although I could be wrong, but I think Barry Lyndon uses actual costumes and outfits from the time period of the 18th century Britain, which is just really cool. I love a way this film is shot, filmed, and made, really. Barry Lyndon is a very slow film. It shows the life of Barry Lyndon as he rises and falls like one of those YouTube videos. He's a cheeky little gambler, he is. Um, it's not a film for everyone, I must admit, but the film way of visual storytelling throughout it's just beautiful. If you don't really have an interest in long ass films or filmmaking or 18th century Britain, this film might not be for you. It's not a popular pick for best Kubrick film, but I enjoy this film the most, I think, and I loved it even more on my rewatch.